When you said that, I kind of got this picture of me coming in, or from your perspective, you seeing me like from the face coming in, and then the ass going out at the end. That was a massive, massive 24 hours. From the time I went out onto the land the night before to probably that was about the time I got to the hotel that night driving. And it was massive. It was like a summary activation, download channeling. I don't know what the hell it was, but thank you for holding space for me, both of you.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, we were in a way in celebration to see that such a powerful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it an avalanche, but a very powerful way of moving through a lot in a short period of time, and really kind of unpacking you to another level of beingness. So it was so great to see it happening.
Yeah.
We held a space of love for you, and of course, a deep appreciation that you were ready enough to take on such a powerful experience. But no, absolutely.
It was all by the grand design, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you were the designer.
Oh.
And that's the thing and the timing was so perfect because of the fact that there was so many things that had to come into alignment to make it happen. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, it's ready. Let's crack this nut open. And that's
yeah, I'll say so.
So, yeah. I just busily here trying to share my.
Yeah, I'm actually sending this to a friend of mine who I grew up with, who asked me, send me a link for your show. And it was 10 minutes before this one. I thought this would be an interesting one. Watch it. And it's an interesting story because we came back together about 6 months ago. I haven't seen him in 30 years.
Oh, is that long? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we connected by phone and mail in 2008 for a brief period of time. He actually came to the party, and he actually gave me some support when I was in serious trouble. And but anyway, he's in high up in government. He's had some high level jobs. Got
okay.
Job in intelligence. I mean, so it's interesting that he's going to watch this.
Okay.
Getting back to what you were talking about, there were so many convergences of so many energies. So there was a field of shared consciousness that was from inner Earth all the way to the off universe, other universes. I mean, that was created by a lot of energies, I guess. Like you said at the beginning of that first talk, we're all here. We all created this, really, at the same level, no matter what it looks like. But it creates this field of potential for growth. And I guess, I was in the right place at the right time with the right people to be able to show my ass. And the best part for me was when you guys got back to the condo and I said, I need to tell you something. And I told you everything that I came to and where I was at. And Kimberly starts laughing. And you're like, this is exactly everything that Franco and I talked about on the way back.
Yes.
So it was like telepathy, validation, synchronicity. Yeah. Very cool.
But, here you are, you signed up, you kind of came to a point and just said, okay, I'm going to take this on and I'm going to be not only going through a stage within myself, but also to kind of open a really powerful conduit of, like you said, you're showing your ass, but in essence, what it is really an opening, a transparency that we create, because all of us create a facade of sorts, very well constructed so that only very few people can actually see it. In some cases, almost no one can see it. And we get so good at it, sometimes we don't even see it ourselves. And this is why a lot of times we don't recognize it until somebody points it out. But I'm not saying this was the case with you, but you kind of almost like gave a permission to have this high power transparency just to really open up in such a fashion that people can bear their hearts or bear whatever they want to bear. But it's not that you have to, say, well, I got to bear this for me to feel good. It's more of, hey, I have nothing to hide, because we're all one. We're
Right.
all this beautiful unification. We're all basically, whatever we're experiencing is in one way or another affecting each other. So it's a very powerful experience that goes through, right? So yeah, and the thing is, as you were even driving back, that had a perfection in it too, because you were kind of creating this what we call horizontal path of energies that were kind of just opening up in a way like waves. That it gave me a picture of the biblical story where what was it, Moses opened up the waters.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's kind of, I got a vision of that after you had left a day or so later, and I go, oh man, here goes Todd opening up the way. So more
It's
people can feel comfortable and safe to move through this, because this is basically all we're doing. It was just purging all this stuff out, because it's
the crazy thing is, even like from from the moment I arrived in Sedona, which I think was the 13th or the 12th, the surreal became real.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you're telling that vision, that's how it felt. I felt like I was on a spaceship. Once I left, and I just got lighter, and so the surreal was very real. It was very natural. Our time together with Kimberly and everyone else was very natural. It was very open. There was just, I don't know how to explain it. It was like a slice of heaven, so to speak. And now I got back to Arkansas on the 9th. I got back on a Tuesday, a day early, and I woke up on Friday thinking it was Thursday. I don't know what happened in that period of time. And then for the last, I don't know, I guess it's been 7 or 8 days since, the real seems surreal. It's the other way around now. It's like I feel very human. I feel like I'm integrating, anchoring, just allowing stuff to come in. I think a lot of people seem to be feeling the same thing. There's just so much stuff coming in. It's almost like you don't even try to understand it. I mean, we don't even have a choice anymore. It's just more frequency, feeling, intuition, being in the heart. I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's the best I can do at it. I know you can explain it better.
Well, and the thing is, you're very different now from the time you left Arkansas to now that you returned to Arkansas, because that window, that period of time that you were doing all that you were doing, you were actually going through a powerful transformation. And I've experienced it only personally myself too, because I've come back. Here I am back in Canada, and I don't feel the same person that left. Absolutely different. And the one thing, and you may relate with this, and many others that may be online right now may relate with this also, is that this type of a shift not only changed our energy field and so forth, but also the way you see things, but also the focal point changed. Like, for example, some of the things that you may have tolerated before and saying, well, this needs to be done, whatever it is, now looks very different. It's like, no, you can't even stretch it in any way to say, oh, I'll include this and I'll do this or anything of that nature, because it's saying, no, we're not doing this anymore, because this does not match not only what I'm here to do now, but it doesn't actually match the energies that are coming through me at this point in time. And I mean this for everybody. I'm not just saying for me.
No, that's very true. That's very true. When I left and I talked to you about my plans as they were coming in and everything was falling into place. I'm like, oh, I can see this happening. And I've been down that road before and know not to get attached. And I wasn't 100% attached, but I was definitely headed that way. And I did have the awareness to say to somebody, I don't know. When I get back, I may get new instructions, which is what's happened. And the instructions are new code, new understanding, new way of living. One of the big downloads I got was, when you've created a playground and you have all these playmates, and let's just say it was Sedona Soulspeaks Fest or anything, as you leave in the Red Sea's parting and you go look for the next one, right? You don't necessarily have to take, it's not a prerequisite that your playmates go with you.
Right.
They may show up on the playground, but you just go plant the post and put up the sign and get started, and what will come will come. So that was a kind of a big one for me, because I had certain I had certain thoughts when I left there, when I left you, and without getting into detail, I can tell you it's a totally different ballgame. It's like that doesn't compute. There is no force, there is no structuring. You just flow.
Yeah, exactly. And you become structureless, and you have to flow, because if you try to create any rigidity, you're kind of creating waves that actually throw you off any rigidity that you may have been able to attach to before. And you said something very key right now, because this window we just went through, which is the 10th to the 18th, and today being the 18th as the pinnacle, the highest vibration through this whole, from the 10th to the 18th, and that will taper off into the 21st before something else comes in. This is actually solidifying us even more. So not only that, is that we're going through such energetic changes, including everything that you did ahead of time, Todd. And don't, the thing is, people that are listening that weren't even at the Soulology Fest has gone through the same or a certain similar transformation, if they weren't there person, or even if they weren't online. The thing is, when we show up there, we're not going alone. We have such a connection to so many that I said, I want to be part of it, even though I can't be there, or I can't even be online. Now, you will notice that, and anybody that has a lot of association with other people will notice that some of the people that they would have had more of a stronger connection may have more of a distant connection, or less of an appeal to be with each other's. And some newer people may show up, and sometimes there's a space in between, because it gives us the opportunity to kind of solidify ourselves, or to ground ourselves to ourselves, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, because this is some of the things I heard from even some people were saying, well, wow, I feel so different that, I used to associate with these people and that people. I know this has been going on for a while, but it just went to a whole nother level. Why? Because as we're going into the next wave that we're moving into at this point in time, is like, we need to be the most clearest state of ourselves without tethering ourselves to other people that are of a lower vibration. Doesn't mean you cut total ties. In some cases you will, but you're not going to have such a reliance of a feedback any longer with certain individuals that are choosing to go down a certain path, or are holding a pattern. Now, there's a perfection for them to do that anyways, not that there isn't, but at the same time, we're not going to hold ourselves back. It's going to be so difficult to hold ourselves back with anything, because we will feel that strong pull, nudge, whatever you want to call, or push, in a sense, to just move in a big way. Now, I don't know how many of you are feeling a sense of excitement too within yourself. Like, you can't even explain it at times. You get waves, you're excited.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I excited about? I mean, yes, there's a lot to be excited, but at the same time, for people that don't usually get that feeling, they're getting waves of it. Even if it lasts a few minutes, whatever it is, or sometimes a little longer than that, it's an excitement, but you can't put your fingers on what it is. Because what's happening is, as you are coming more online, and these energies are coming in, you're creating a connection of a reminder of yourself. And then there's like, oh, even though you can't consciously connect to that in understanding, and some people do, of course, but you'll feel something feels good. Something feels great, because you're meeting yourself at that higher state.
Yeah. It's gotten really, really loud in this period you're talking about. And I didn't think about the what was it, the 10th? What happened the 10th? It was it the eclipse?
Yes,
10th?
right at from the eclipse.
Yeah. So you're talking about the time between now and then, and that's been that's for me. That's been like like really deep stuff coming up. There was a lot of stuff coming up that was going, yeah, I'm going, why again? You know, and it was just basically came in that it was very much ancestral, human lineage type stuff, very deep, very graphic, very yucky, but to basically own it.
Yep.
And let the story go and utilize it for the knowledge that it provides now and forever, basically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing is, how can I say? We really know from a deep inside that in a way we're stepping into another level of adventure.
Yeah.
And many of us, as much as we felt, how can I say, feeling that we weren't doing that much besides our personal stuff coming up, like you were saying, well, what else can I do of service? How can I best be part of some of the powerful changes that are going in? So as much as we're taking on certain things and kind of processing it within ourselves, that each time we have this burst of excitement and so forth, and each time we're more and more grounding and purifying all of this other stuff, because that's kind of a process that we're going through. We're purifying ourselves. And what are we purifying? Not that we're dirty or anything like that. We're just purging out all of the stuff that reflected an old world, so that we're experiencing this new world that starts within ourselves. But because of all the so-called unfoldings that's going to happen for the next year and a half, and we're going to be experiencing some interesting stuff, July, August, September, and so forth.
We're not going to skip over that stuff. We'll come back. Just so everybody knows.
So with that coming about, many of us are saying, okay, I want to become a conduit, and I'm preparing myself, refining myself, purifying myself so that I can be a more crystalline conduit, so the energies move through me and so forth. And we're positioned all over the world, and that way, and no one's accidentally at a place they don't need to be. Even if you're in a mobile trailer and moving, it doesn't matter, because each burst that comes in, each wave that you activate within yourself is exactly where you need to be to anchor that into the playground we call Gaia. And we are, all of us are, part of the excitement is that, hey, yes, I'm taking an active role, first of all. Second of all, more people are realizing that we are on a playground, okay? And that we are here to play, because many of us forgot that we're here to play. We're here to experience. We come to a point where we feel that it's so real that we have to earn our way through it. I'm not even talking monetarily or anything like that. Earn it in some deity's eyes or whatever. Even if we don't relate with a religion, somehow we feel that we've come here, we got to do it right, do it a certain way before we move. And that we take in such a seriousness to it. And that playfulness is not being grown up. If you play and you don't grow up, because the whole idea was growing up is to become serious.
Right.
And if you're not serious, then you're still childlike, which is absolutely the reverse. And that's why we're going through that reverse, because progress, adventure, growth, imagination, dream state, advancement of playground in ourselves is through play, through our childlike play. And I'm not talking about, when we were 1 or 2 or 3 years old, but when we were 1, 2, 3 years old, we had the curiosity, the adventure. You wanted to touch, taste, experience everything else. And you didn't have any rules until, you got conditioned more into it. But at that point in time, it's like, let's play.
It's an unbridled, unreckless abandon, protected by spirit. It's purity. It's us. I think I'm waiting for somebody to do, so many people are doing like good animations now, like Spirit Science, the YouTube channel. They've been doing it for years. I'm waiting for someone to come out with a satirical animation that is telling the story from us, by us, from up here, and how we basically hid ourselves from us You know what I mean? It's like a big cosmic joke, and that's the whole point. When you can start laughing about it,
Mm-hmm.
you are actually in really doing it, because you can't really fake it. You know, you could pull up any horrible thing in the world or in your personal experience to kind of measure yourself off of. But when you can hold that space and see the wisdom and the humor, I don't know. To me, that's just one symptom or characteristic of what seems to be unfolding without argument, day in and day out.
Yeah, and you know what the best part is? When you see it as a game, when you're having fun, when you're in play, not only do you see more of your true essence of yourself, you actually open up many, many more channels of potentiality, capacities. You, like, for example, if you take on a serious role and you want to activate one of your gifts, it is tremendously much more difficult to do so. But if you go in as a child, like, let me experiment, let me practice, let me play with this, you will see you'll be able to activate more of your gifts, more of your capacities, more of your capabilities with so much more ease. Like, for example, even when we talk about that we're unpacking this new world, okay, within ourselves, within around us, going into our creative state, it's so difficult when we see it as something serious, because as we see it serious, we still give power to that inverted world. We still give power to limitation. We still give power to not having the possibilities to experience that. So what would be best suited, which I'm going to do an episode on it, is when you go into your, say, imaginative state or envisioning state or any of those things, going into your dream state, if you go in as a childlike play, and forget about even the childlike, because a lot of people have a lot of connotation with that, I mean, in play, and say, okay, you know something? This is what I envision my world to look like. You shape it up as you're a little kid. You're seeing all of this stuff, whatever that may be, without any expectations or condition how it's going to play out. But you put the vision out and let all of it construct and tie no expectation. Because the moment you put expectations, the moment you put a condition, you restrict it, and it has to go through filters.
I like that. I like that exercise, and metaphorically speaking, the energy behind it. I love that. You know, it's like going back to that state we were talking about when you're 1, 2, 3 years old and you haven't been conditioned. So, you know, I think about something and I'm half joking and half serious. Now, 2 times, some level of physical teleportation coming from me to Morgan in Australia. But now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, well, that's kind of where I seem. Well, I could see a trajectory beyond what I experienced and was conscious of, based on what you were saying. But I can set the program. I want to go play. Basically, it's that mentality. I'm going to go play instead of going to sleep thinking about this and thinking about that. That's a great exercise.
Yeah, and you know the thing is, if we go to sleep, when we go to bed, instead of going to bed and, okay, I'm tired, whatever it is, and you just say to yourself, I am open to expand my capacities of experiencing adventure in my dream state. And say it from a heart perspective, saying, hey, and even if you psych yourself up, and when I say psych yourself, prepare yourself before bed and say to yourself, I look forward to going into sleep state and dream state and go into those realms that have no limitations, and let me see what I can accomplish and do. in those states. So what we call, what's the called lucid dreaming, in a way, comes more active within yourself, but it opens up a parameter, because when you go into that dream state, you're already staging potentialities that you can now already start creating changes, because what you're dreaming is also changing you, so that when you go into what you call the awake state, your daily wake state, that you're already using what you've practiced or allowed yourself to experience overnight to kind of be part of the shaping and creating of your current wake state reality.
Yeah, and I think too, like that's one of the things I learned hanging around you in person is I'm not like you. You have that thing where you take the crowd or you take the client or whatever through a process. It's because I'm not real big on like meditations for me personally. I mean, I have ADD or whatever, but that's like what I got out of that. Like I think I sat in on 3. It was a programming. Now it was kind of like old school to me in a way, because I started out years ago in my early 20s doing affirmations. But what it made me realize in that field of consciousness that we were, part of, was that the affirmations style, type of programming, let's say, is much more potent now, because the energy is much more potent now. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the revelations I had hanging out with you was, to a greater degree than I already understood in practice, which was guard your thoughts. You're creating now and you're conscious, and there's no excuse, there's no judgment, but you can make this thing sing like however you want. So I think that type of process that you do, and just affirmations in general, because I've always found them they work very good for me. It takes on a whole different life now. Programming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reprogramming.
And the thing is too, with affirmations, so like you said, guard your thoughts, but what I would say is observe your thoughts and direct your thoughts.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned and programmed to believe that, you have to be careful of your thoughts, one thing. But one of the things is that there's right thoughts and wrong thoughts, right? Now, what you want to do is, when you're observing your thoughts, you're not looking for bad thoughts or good thoughts. You're observing the thoughts, because the thoughts actually are indication of what you're using as a directive of shaping your reality. So you say, oh, okay, does that match what I choose to embody as my reality? If it doesn't, it's like, okay, let me create a shift in it. And you're not going to demonize one thought over the other, but you're going to say, well, that one doesn't fit in. It's like trying to put a puzzle together, and certain pieces don't belong at certain place. Well, it doesn't kind of fit there, because that goes to an older puzzle that I'm no longer playing with. So my new puzzle requires these things. So you do it in play, and so forth. When you're talking about also affirmations, yeah, it is much more powerful, because what's changed is because the ego's gotten a little bit less, or in some cases more than ever, less power in judging your affirmations. Because as much as you may not have been paying attention to it before, or noticed it, I should say noticed, not paying attention, but like you would say, I am healthy, wealthy, or this, whatever. I'm just giving you an example.
Healthy, wealthy, and wise. Didn't somebody say that?
Yes.
No,
The thing is, I wanted to say about that is that your ego now is not having as much input in saying, that's fucking bullshit, because it knows we're not that way, right? It's putting
that
less.
Was the first time Franco's ever done an F-bomb on.
Yeah, I don't know how that one came up. I think
that was awesome.
I think it was bad influence from you. No, I'm just but yeah, go ahead. Sorry about what.
Well, no. I was just going to say that I forgot what I was going to say. Oh no. What I was going to say is, yeah, you do a much better job of explaining. That's one of the things that you do. And it's just like, I don't know. It's all changed so fast that the faster it gets, the more simple it gets, and it doesn't make any sense. So it's like allowing the complexities or whatever they may be to go. And I don't know. I'm real excited when you said that earlier. You know, do you feel excited? Yes, I do. And yet there's still all this stuff running through my veins, so to speak. And I know everybody's feeling it. It's just amazing to think that there is a fairy tale occurring, and that's not a fairy tale. This is of the highest sanctity, knowing. I mean, we're not all crazy. This is going down. I think, too, of a satirical animation where it would be the true alien invasion from a human perspective. That's actually us going into human bodies and basically being ourselves and creating a new earth.
Right, right. And the thing is, too, excitement is like a drug of sort, what we call a vibration drug of yourself. Because what happens when the more you get those impulses of excitement, the more it's going to want. And it's going to go, okay, what do I need to do to experience more of that? Not that one's better than the other, but it's going to go, okay, I'm going to feed that part. And does it mean I have to adjust certain things? Yeah, okay, my focus thought is about concern about this or that or whatever it is. And I'm not going to put my concern on that because I like the excitement part. The excitement is great. It's reminding me as a child. It's reminding me of what feels really good to me because it's natural to me. And as much as I play with the words that it's like a drug, it's a high. It's a high because
it's like dope. It's like cosmic dopamine.
yeah. And the thing is, we're made to be excited, to be playful, to look at when we were at the Soulology Fest there. It was exciting. It was amazing to have all these beautiful people there connecting and sharing and so forth. It was an excitement of, hugging, embracing, whatever it was. And there was an excitement of the fact that there were so many more people that were coming together that were, open to higher consciousness and so forth. I felt a tremendous amount of excitement. I mean, I wouldn't have missed it for the world at that point in time, only because of the fact that, over the years, of course, there are more and more playmates that have been coming out, but to see that opportunity to be around, and of course, the location had a lot to do with it, and your intention and so forth, and the energies of your team that were, all involved in making this magical as it was. But the point is the excitement just went to another level because of the fact that we get to see, hey, we're in motion, there's so much going on, and we're not restricted because the whole world is saying, hey, things are crashing, this is that, all these potential things that could happen and so forth. And when you feel that excitement in you, it's just like, yeah, well, everybody can say and do whatever they want, but I know where we're going. I know it. I feel it. I breathe it. I sense it. And this is what people are feeling.
Yeah. Well, and two, there's a handoff. It seems like there's a handoff. Like all of us got here listening to these voices, these higher aspects of ourselves, be it a higher self or a team or whatever. And the sovereignty to me, like, has become a totally different thing. Like everything else, especially over the last couple of 2-3 months, where I'm sovereign in every single way. So some of these conversations that I'm having are expanding, I guess. It's about me being open to what I see as myself external or my aspects. It's more than that. It's equalizing with that energy and being equal with it, and being part of, let's say, so to speak, a council, being part of that mastermind group, and taking that intel back into being a human. But what I'm finding is that there's no application there are many applications that you could define it and structure it on, but the frequency that seems to be driving it is one that is going into action the way it's received, which is telepathic, intuitive, instinctive, natural, and very weird to the human. And you're going, whoa, it took me a week to recover from what we experienced. And if you look at that as an energetic example, as a metaphor, I think we got a huge jolt, and now we got this solstice coming up. Is it going to be on par with the energy that came in equinox and thereafter?
It's actually higher than that. So, it's going to be, it's actually got another spectrum to it. And because of the permission we've given for an extra juice bomb of sorts, in the sense of intensities and
now, who would have done that? Who would have initiated something like that?
Well, from my gatherings, from what I've checked in, I said, like, who the hell gave the permission for all of us? And all they said it was, it's Todd Medina. I said, I knew it. It had to be him.
But you're serious? The solstice is going to be even higher than the equinox, which makes sense. That's been the trajectory of the last couple of years.
Well, the thing is, it's ramping up more and more every time. The thing is, it's not in any way, shape, or form going to back down at this point in time. Some people have said that, June has been kind of a breather time. It has, in a way, but not for everybody. I mean, it's been for some, but for the majority, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not getting blown over, but I'm going to take more of an active role. And then they're using the energies coming in to purge more stuff, bring more stuff up, and things of that nature. And this is the thing too. Many of us have taken on so much stuff of realism through a lot of the things that we've experienced in our life, or even watched through other sets of eyes, meaning other people, or through media, whatever it is, that we're purging that part of it too. So, this next wave of it. And, the other thing is too, we are also in the process of bringing our mind, or in this case, brain, our computer, and our body to another level of functionality, which does not support a way of life that, is deteriorating, or holding illness, or holding any of those lower energies and so forth. So there's many people out there that have taken on and say, okay, I'm going to take on certain ailments or accentuated certain circumstances and so forth, and I'm going to embody it, rewrite it, and put it out in the collective so that other bodies will. So when we have these powerful waves, it actually takes that and it applies it to everybody, so that everybody.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just see if I got you. So if you just say the four seasons are like waves, and in that expanse, or that block of information, there's four waves. So the wave could be a solstice, equinox. In the time in between waves, we're basically taking what was enhanced, or at least potentially enhanced, in the previous wave, and we create. And then I think what you're saying is, as one of these periods comes, we're then taking what we've created and it's amplifying it for us. The wave goes down, we integrate, we create again, and move forward.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is too, whatever we're experiencing, very much so right now, our brother, sister souls that are in ships, that are also in, that we have a very strong connection with, that are working with us, that they may not be present, but for some people, they may show up in what you can call physical form. They're very much monitoring everything how we respond, and they're getting feedback. But then through that feedback, they're actually seeing what they can launch next. But when that happens, it doesn't go beyond us. A lot of times we feel that, people like to believe that in some way it's being done to us.
Yeah.
It's not. They're working with us. We're the ones that are not only instructing them how,
Yeah.
we're actually aiding and connecting with them, very much so, monitoring every part of it with them and saying, okay, we're ready for this, we're not ready for that, or whatever it is, and also providing the feedback so that you say, okay, we're at this level now, we can do so.
We're consenting.
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
creating. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a dynamic that has to be, I think, at this point, becoming, kind of pervasive into our consciousness, even if we're not conscious of it. There's obviously something working for us that hasn't done so well, at least based on, our perspective, our evolving perspective, at such a collective level. I think you said this in Sedona in one of the talks, talking about basically there's a whole boatload of enlightened individuals to the level of a Jesus or a Buddha, or some people like that, Amma, people like that. It's all happening at the same time.
yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, even when we're going through what people call Christ consciousness, what is Christ consciousness? It's a realization of oneness. It's a realization really of our true state of love. But we're actually going above that, not to supersede it, but because we're more ready for that, and to create such a, let's put it this way, the key codes, energetically, frequency wise, and so forth, and also with our level of awareness that we're using now, from a collective scale, even though that we may not always be conscious of it. In essence, we're actually going even higher ranges than
Yeah,
at that time.
which makes sense because we can add the experience to what the previous template was, right?
Yes. So in essence, this I'm just going to share this. Okay.
Good. This is a good one.
Yeshua is my guide, and I've worked with him for many, many, many years, and he's a guide for quite a few other people too. I'm not exclusive by any means, and I've had very candid conversations with him, because I kind of come from a curiosity viewpoint, and even though I did do a drop in when he was on the planet a couple of thousand years ago. I was not as involved as I am now, of course, very different. But one of the things,
This is your first full incarnation.
this is an actual incarnation. Yes, a full incarnation. Yeah, other times have been drop-ins. Okay. Right. I'm talking about the soul. I'm not talking about the human entity, which I don't have anyways, but from the body sense. But in my conversation, I said, well, you were coming in at a Hertz frequency of about 1,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's what you had the capacity of doing, right? He said, yeah, but I would blow people's circuits at that range. So I had to always keep it below 500. I would peak at certain times at 500 when I was in a gathering and when I was communicating with them and so forth, because 500 is already love. But when you get into 1,000, you're getting into pure source love. You're getting, but we have capacities to go even beyond that. So he said, but now more people are ready for that. So that's why we're superseding the 1,000. We're going into the 1,200 hertz and so forth. And because of our readiness, even Gaia's pulses of energy and the energies that the sun is giving out, it has been able to pulse into higher ranges. Because, up to 1987, I think what we're at 7.2 or something of that nature. And then, it did climb up to 7.8 up to 2012. And then it started climbing up way above that over the years, and the last couple of years or so, and we get really high ranges, even though they're short pulses and they don't last a long time. But each time that creates it, that was not possible before. We had such a density; the cells were so locked up our energy field was so locked up that a burst of that nature would be enough to push us to the edge where we would actually exit the physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in some cases would cause such a disruption that you can go into a coma or all types of different things that were happening at that time. But we're not there. I'm not saying not everybody is in the same boat, because everybody's got a certain level of openness. But you have to understand, when your life, how can I say it? You know, when people talk about sheltered life, living a sheltered life, okay? They're not exposed to the range of life, okay? Because they lived a sheltered life. That's just an example I want to use as an analogy. So many of us have lived so deeply in the inverted matrix of such low vibrations. These high vibrations were so foreign, so off the charts that the body didn't know what to do with it. Our overall energy field, as our consciousness, didn't know what to do with it. And so it would create a shutdown or a crash, or, you know, like, well, you can call a meltdown, but a meltdown that could actually push you out of the body, right?
Yeah.
And there were times that happened for many people. So the ranges had to be cut down.
Yeah. Yeah, I had 150
the range
seizures.
of the peak up was trimmed, and the range below, you know, played whatever it was. Now it's the other way around, Todd. The low range has been trimmed, and each time we go through this, it's going to get trimmed. On the 21st is going to get trimmed again, by the way, which is only days away. What is it, next week sometime?
3 days.
Okay, 3 days. Oh, that's right, Monday, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So it gets trimmed, but the range higher is brought up to another level, it's expanded. Now, that doesn't mean it's capped. It's capped as a collective, but it's not capped individually. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but it's the floor. That's, to me, that's, I think, coming in to our awareness first, because I've noticed every day that even if you try to go, and we've talked about this, you've talked about this in previous shows, even if we try to go, you know, engage something that's lower vibration or whatever the case is, it's just not, it's not working. Yeah. It's not giving you a choice. It's like, you know, you can't play with that toy anymore. And of course, the other side of it is this infinite ceiling that, you know, from our perspective, we start to become aware that that's gone higher. So like you a couple of things you mentioned, first of all, and not to get caught up in any story, because there's a danger always, you know, to our programming or whatever. We want to just, you know, focus on being open, but I'm really aligning with 2023 and I see what it looks like. And I'm looking at where we're standing now to, let's just say, January 1, 2023. And there's a whole lot of stuff that will, like, it's a concentrated, I don't know. It's like an epic, you know, epoch, you know, it's like, I don't know what to call it, but taking the linear out, it makes perfect sense. If looking at it from the linear, which I'm probably answering my own question, it looks like, well, holy crap. On one hand, that's a lot of stuff. And on the other hand, well, we evidently got what it takes. We evidently have done the work in the energetic field, and let's see what it's going to look like. But it looks pretty wild to me. Do you have any comments on that? What I just spoke of?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, yes, from a mind perspective, through what we call form, it looks like there's a lot to be done by then, meaning how much has to be changed. But we have to understand we're not form, first of all. Yeah. Second of all, the most powerful part of ourselves is our energy field, our creation field, okay? Because of our true makeup is just pure consciousness, pure light, pure projection, or what we call holographicness, that you don't have the same boundaries.
Right.
The beauty of all of this is we never had the boundaries. We were
Right.
convinced to create artificial boundaries.
Yeah.
For example, about the end of 2012 into 2013, I had this conversation with these my brother sister souls that I was at one of their councils, one of their meetings, and one of the things is I said, okay, you guys are really stepping things up, and I'm really happy for that. That's great. But I wanted to ask you, what made you feel the sense that it's time, and more than now? Because they did mention that it's going to ramp up very quickly. Now, their first intent was to make more progress by the end of 2017. Okay. In fact, actually, I think it was 2016 going into 2017, and then bringing up to even higher into 2018. However, they had to kind of trim it down a bit because a lot of people weren't ready. But one of the things they had said, because I asked them, I said, okay, without all this input that you guys are doing, that we are all working together, even though we're not always aware of it, because many of us have been here and have come prepared and are working on the back end, even though from a super conscious level, we've been really active. And I'm talking about people that are online or whatever else, all over the world. One of the things is that, we're doing all of this. And they said, one thing they had said is that if we left it alone without this high-powered intervention that we are doing and collaborating, these are the words that are important, collaborating with all of you that are doing this. Because one of the things that was announced from a super conscious level to everyone on the planet, this is what we're doing. We've collectively agreed that we're going to bring ourselves back online with our galaxy and on within the universe and back online within our solar system. And these are the changes we're going to do it. And this is the range we're going to work in. This is the consciousness we're going to bring in. And this is how it's going to look like. And every soul was given the opportunity with absolute free will to say, I will be in it totally. I will be in it only to this level. I will be in it only to a certain stage. And then...
Or get me the fuck out of here.
Everybody had the opportunity. Now, of course, there was a calling that said to slow it down. But one of the things I want to say is that they had said that if they did not get that agreement and they just let it go, two things would have happened. First of all, the progress that we're making right now would have took 200 years minimum and up to 400 years at our own capacities without us bringing that other aspect of ourselves or those higher vibrations in. First thing. Second thing is, if we did not intervene because we worked with you because of that level of stuff that was going on, you would have blown yourself up. There was no way.
I agree.
Okay? There was no way. Even we would have been already long gone.
There was too much distortion. There was too much distortion.
So that's why we agreed to have all of that.
No, I'm good with that. Let me ask you something. So it would make sense to me, even though it doesn't make sense to the human perspective, but it makes sense to me that between now and the first of 2023, if we have to use linear times, and certainly from thereafter, it would just make sense to me that this very physical dimension, this dimension of form, that form itself would become less and less, let's say, of the dominant sensitivity in our experience. In other words, the formless part of us becomes more prominent, which means from a proportionate level of the whole, the form experience becomes different. It becomes less of our constant collective code, that we take on our experience. It just feels like through the frequency of what you're saying and just from everything else that there is that the formless will take on more of a role. And I guess it's already happening, but that's one thing to consider, but then to consider that form itself, which could be considered, for instance, space, like Morgan's in Australia and I'm here, that could be something that takes on a different kind of thing as well, if not totally goes away. I don't know.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So the so-called formless, the higher vibration formless, integrating within ourselves, actually changes and reduces and eventually eliminates what we would call the rigidity and the lag or the progress of change or the shifting to the way right now everything it's speeding up. Of course, we see it happening to us, but everything took longer to change. As we integrate that, more of that will speed up. The other thing is we collapse the idea of space and time. So, in fact, you and Morgan will not be separated by thousands of kilometers or miles, whatever you referred to, uh, because there is no space. There is
Yeah.
no space. There is no
Yeah.
time, and we created that to play in different ranges, but there is no separation, anyways.
Yeah.
It's an illusionary part that we wanted to interact,
Well,
but at the same
yeah.
time, you can maintain both. You can maintain what
That's
looks
yeah.
like space and also unification.
So going back to what you were saying about when when we shaved the ceiling, when we shaved the ceiling and allowed the floor to be whatever it was, and now it's reversed. We're shaving the floor, which means for lack of a better word, the lowest point is now higher than it's been, and it's going to continue to in that trajectory. And then you talk about our actual experience with all of our senses and what that looks like. I can see that in metaphor, also in image, where the floor continues to be risen, it continues to go higher, and therefore, to me, it would only make sense in the physical experience that there would be less of a density. The
Correct.
floor would have less density. So, I mean, at some point, we could be walking around like the translucent brother souls that came into our bedroom that we've talked about. We could be walking around in more of like a hologram, see-through, translucent. I mean, it could be anything. I mean,
yeah. And the thing is, that would be something that you actually have a choice to play with those things, but you may not have the preference to it because, listen, what looks like solidity or solid or whatever, or the realism has a real appeal for it, but it's a different solidified because it doesn't have the same restrictions as before. Now, one thing I'm glad what you brought up because of the floor coming out. If you pay attention to it, if everybody, I mean, if we actually observe, it doesn't matter how much fear, what do they call fear porn or any type of fear or any chaotic, warlike idea. Like, for example, you take these leaders in certain planets and say, well, we're going to start World War III, whatever. Okay. You will see that it will be so difficult to launch it because the moment we try to go down there, people are going to go, no way, we're not doing that. And I don't care what level you're at because nobody's going to entertain that.
Yeah.
They can have a little bout of that fear. They can have a little bout of it. But the thing is, you'll notice that it's going to change because there's so many more people. They're saying, no, we're not supporting that. We're not going there. And you could see it right now, even with this whole, COVID thing and whatever else that's going on. Not everybody's going into the soup.
Yeah. Well, or maybe there's 2 soups. Maybe there's 8 billion soups.
Because a lot of them are saying, hey, we're not going there. Forget it. You can say whatever you want because I can see the other side of it and I can see the beauty of it. And this is the thing. That's because of the capping off or the reducing of the lower, denser vibration. And the thing is, what it changes is the realism of that heavy, dark density.
Yeah.
It becomes, look at it this way. How many times let's bring it to ourselves. How many of you, this is a question you can ask yourself and yourself too, Todd. How many things that we actually had a fear of or would have given power to fear before now just looks ridiculous or humorous?
It's comical. It's
Yeah,
comical. That's the first
exactly.
thing that came to my mind. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to ask you something
Mhm.
from your perspective, and again, with knowing memory of many planetary experiences and playgrounds.
Mhm.
When our aspects, our brother sister souls in the universal family, so to speak, look at in particular the pain, the suffering, the worst moments we've had, the dark nights of the soul, the human conditioning, the human condition. When they look at that part of us which we've had to come to terms with, the traumas and the regrets and the shames and the victim, you know the story.
Mhm.
How do they look at that? What does that look like? And I know there's no right or wrong or good or bad or that was great, but what do they look at that? Do they gain anything from that?
Yes, I mean, some are in awe that it's even possible to be experienced in that fashion, that level of realism, and others cannot relate to it. And this is why a lot of times many of us would offer ourselves to kind of hook up to their technology to download or to actually see the chemistry change, the emotion, the energy change, and so forth that we go through when we have something of that nature play out, because many do not have this whole thing about shame or feeling that, that they screwed up or something, because a lot of them, as much as they may not be in total play, because there's two parts to this. As much as they can't get as lost in the game as we can, they can't also feel the level of elation that we have either. Okay, so the ranges are not quite there. Now, I know one thing I can share with you is with when they look at how we create an environment where we take advantage of each other,
Mm,
that we kill each other, that we do not create an environment where we support each other in a
hmm.
sense of seeing that we're all in the same playground, that we're all the same. They were kind of a bit shocked. I remember some years with them off and on, and they say, wow, unless we were observing it, we couldn't believe that that was even possible to do
Well,
that.
it's the Frankenstein template.
Right.
I mean, there's in true creation, there's a faithfulness, going both ways,
Mhm.
and it's the chicken and the egg thing. So, what's so interesting to me is that all the different dimensions are and I have I'm like a, speck of pepper on an elephant's butt in terms of what your your wealth of experience is. But it really intrigues me how that plays out at different levels. There's still this dance, even at the higher levels, there's always this dance. And somewhere in that uh, part that's not in equilibrium, even in the highest things I've experienced, that seems to be the womb. That seems to be where we create new things.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that were told that. How about now? Have we come out of kindergarten yet?
Well, we're definitely in a different position or condition at this point in time. However, they're also at the same time. I mean, there's two parts. I mean, they still see we're a work in progress of sorts, if you want to use those terminology, because people can relate with that. But at the same time, they also see that we're making progress, and we are shifting into that. In our natural state, when before this inverted stuff came in and we got programming conditioned through competition, through separation, through polarization, through destruction, taking advantage of feeling worthy, unworthy, all that stuff that was playing out. um how can I say, you know, without that, what they understand and what we have within our own understanding in our natural state very much matches. The only difference is that we have more sensorial and capacities to create not only realism, but sensorially enriched experiences, because most of them don't have emotions, not even close to what we have. They do not have all the senses that we have that are filtered through feelings, because they don't have that. They can sense more in some cases, but they can't relate to it, and they can't densify it to the degree that we can feel it. When it comes to pain, to them, it's an off-on switch in most cases, and they don't have to give it any power if they don't want to, and they don't, and they can't feel it to the same degree as we do, because they don't identify with pain the same way, because they don't define it the same way, because we define pain emotionally through a lot of stories and labels and so forth. For example, one of the things that came up, and I'll share this.
Here's another good one.
The realism, the impact, and how we shape our life on what we've labeled as drama, they had a hard time trying to figure that one out.
So the curiosity or concern is more in line with how deep we went, how deep we've gone. It sounds like there's a little judgment coming from them, but I can totally understand that. But everybody's got a different perspective, I guess.
Yeah. No, I wonder. It's not a judgment. It's more of an observation.
No, I get that. I get that.
That they're looking at.
But I mean, let me ask you this, because again, I look at perspective. You could call it higher frequency, or they're from another universe or dimension or whatever. But it's just like the Earth. It's all these different perspectives. So I could see that from them. I could see that. I wonder what type of perspective or energy accelerator, that a soul that walked the earth will carry when it continues on.
Well, definitely much more experientially enriched, but it also has further ranges of capacity because of it. Okay. Let me share one little part. And I think people are not going to get too afraid of this. But anyways, something that's been happening the last 2 years. I mean, it's always happened, but a lot less. But what's happening more? There are people on the planet right now, like you and I, I'm not saying just you and I mean, lots of people around the world that actually have to give an opportunity to step aside, sometimes at night, other times during the day, where our soul would step aside and say, okay, I'm going to leave it open. And what we will call our brother, sister, alien soul that's never been human will step in for a period of time. Could be a few minutes, could be a few hours, could be for the day, sometimes a few days, whatever. So that they can actually upload from the human experience so that they would have a better understanding of what's going on.
That makes sense. I mean, like they would be at such a high level of organic technology. It would be like Terminator walking into the bar and sizing everybody up. They would be absorbing everything like a sponge. That makes a lot of sense. Now, how would that affect or be known, affect, or if any effect, the human aspect? Like, is the human aspect going to get to a point, let's just say in a small minority or majority level, where it will be able to kind of be like in the FAA tower and know what's coming and going? You know what I mean?
You mean the physical feeling?
Like if the soul steps out for a second.
Yeah.
I know that soul's still connected to the human soul.
Yeah, it's
aspect,
still connected. Yeah.
but something else drops in. Is there a point where the human aspect itself, and as a standalone, will be conscious, or knowing that this is going on?
Yes, yes, yes. Uh, for most people, you will feel something shifted. You may have a bit of a space where you feel empty, and then you feel something alien like. And I don't mean it like in the name of
I know
alien.
what you
You feel
I
it
know what
very
you mean.
different. You feel a different energy within you. You feel, and in a way, at that point in time, you're going to notice that what you're looking at. Let me throw this one. Okay. One of the things that you will notice as a reference point, yeah, you're going to feel that something's different, but all of a sudden you're looking at through your eyes and saying, it's almost like it feels like someone else is looking through your eyes. You look around and it's like, wow, everything looks different, and I see more than I used to see, and I can observe more, and it's almost like something else is looking through your eyes. Now, if somebody else is observing you, okay, and they look at your eyes, that is
Hmm.
actually observant, and can pick
Hmm.
up that, they will notice the eyes are different,
Yeah,
and not so much just the eyes, but also the energy behind the eyes,
yeah.
that will have an alien light. Now, I've heard people say that even the pupils will look a little different, more either slotted, or it can
Hmm.
go one way or the other, or it will become more oval or something of that nature. And sometimes they'll look like the eyes get bigger.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this is good information. I mean, I'm obviously wedded to an ET, and I pick, I can pinpoint different periods. That's not to say that that soul is not there and always present. I don't understand how this all works, but I can definitely see. Now, it would seem to me that just looking at me, which feels very much more organic, even though I know I'm everything, and in her case, galactic, that is there more of a proclivity for someone that's more of a galactic makeup to go through these type of things, or is this open to everybody, or how does that work?
well, anybody that's actually allows it to come through because they're open for it,
Mm.
of course, you're going to be at a certain level of frequency and understanding,
And this
and
could again be, to somebody's point, be angel, archangelic, many other divine essences, I guess.
yes, yes, angelics do that. Sometimes your certain guides will do that, that are, haven't had a human form for a very long time or ever.
Yeah.
But you can also have your ET brothers that are, from other dimensions, that will come in and do that. Yeah, if you're already somewhat galactic, you're kind
Yeah.
of already dispositioned to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But I must say, they get a different level of intel when they're
True.
going into more of a human.
Yeah, they'd
Because,
have fun with me. But let me ask you this.
yeah.
So it sounds to me like, and in that beautiful paradoxical cosmic equation that I never could understand, as our brother sister soul comes in to feel it all and to gain the code like a sponge,
Mhm.
um, it must work both ways. Like we must be like a merging almost. We must be, would we, or I'm not going to say we must be, it would make sense to me, but do we pick up their code that we can use when these things occur? Or,
Oh, absolutely. They always leave an imprint
yeah,
because of the energy they bring in. And usually the imprint actually opens us up even further. So in a way, that's kind of an agreement that we make. Because you have to understand, the innate consciousness of the body, or the body consciousness, which is the extension of Gaia, has to approve. Your human entity has to approve. And then, of course, your soul is going to say, okay, I'll step aside temporarily to be able to do this. And at the same time says, okay, I'm open to that. The only reason it makes an agreement to do so, because it also benefits from it too. And so it does create a shift. So each time that happens, it shifts, first of all, the soul that steps in, the being that steps in. Because sometimes, okay,
We can go
sometimes
deep, man. We can go deep. We can go all night long.
their whole energy field steps into your body, and
Yeah.
you will feel it. And sometimes if you're alone and you may pay attention to yourself, I'm not saying everybody, but some people, you will see that you give them enough permission so that their whole energy field comes in. It's not just the soul, the observer, and part of their mind concept. We're talking in their physical. So you may feel that you will go through, you will almost have like two bodies reflecting, and depending on which energy is coming in, you could actually shapeshift, or a certain semi shapeshift because of it. That actually ends up bringing that other dynamic of yourself in another level of your beingness into it too. I didn't intend to be talking about this, Todd, but anyways,
Well, I
we're
can't
going
help
there.
it. It's just a natural evolution.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, it
So,
wouldn't have came up if we weren't going to talk about it.
well,
I just don't want to bring anybody into a position where they're going to feel be afraid of this, because the people that are hearing that can relate with it already are open to it anyway. So I
of course,
don't have
yeah.
concern. I don't
So
really.
to me, there's still this thread of how the human aspect, that human part of us, the part that we're not leaving behind, like, I mean, that's the only way I can put it, that connects to these types of occurrences. Now, how do we, I mean, I'm not saying like, how do we do it? Like, tell us how to do it. I mean, like, how are we currently processing that type of thing? Because that's, even if we're unconscious to whatever degree, we're at least conscious to some degree that's expanding. It only makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So as it's coming online, how is the human aspect dealing with this? Is it working in perfect, symbiotic, relationship where it's, it's an even keel? Is it a situation where the human is still too absorbed in wanting to understand and thinking something's wrong with itself? I mean, are we in a place where we've started to kind of flow with it? I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, for most of us, it's symbiotic. It's very so much where it's open to it. The one thing I wanted to mention is that our bodies, our human entities, our souls, our overall consciousness, in most cases, is very receptive and will not have any issues with it. The one that keeps asking, I want to understand, is not so much the overall consciousness, because it has an expanded realization, especially with what we've been going through, but it's more the ego. And
Yeah,
it's
I
very
just,
expanded.
your higher self just lip synced to me right before you said that. It was like a echo. No, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely that's the truth. Yeah, I mean, it's I keep saying that everywhere I turn, there's two choices, and I guess when you get right down to it, the ego, beloved ego, represents the one I've always been on, and there's really not two choices there to be in a natural state. So that's a big lesson. Thank you for that. I mean, you get things
Yeah.
certain ways and certain times.
See, a lot of, what the thing is, just to add this to the mix here, we have to understand many facets of ourselves, like the body. Remember, the body is an extension of Gaia. It has its unique signature, absolutely, but that's just to have a unique experience, but it's all still a part of the whole. It's been in preparation. It's very familiar with our brother sister souls from other playgrounds. And because our planet,
Our body is
yes,
okay.
our bodies are.
The
Our human,
consciousness, a consciousness in our multidimensional consciousness, which is the body, which is obviously in this density first and foremost, is familiar with all of that.
Yes, it is
Okay.
familiar. It may have lost some touch with it over the time being, but it's like a remembering. It's like, oh, I haven't seen this in a long time, but I remember it. It's very familiar, right? So the body itself is not that estranged by it in any way, shape, or form. The human entity's been around for 15,000 years. It has had many, many, many interactions of beings coming in and out and so forth, and even also in its more natural state. So it's a little bit more open, and it's also receptive to have it come into to play a role. The soul, of course, has been in other bodies before, what we call the multidimensional soul. So it's like totally okay with that. The overall consciousness is the makeup of all of that anyway. So it's kind of expanded. It's the ego that has actually been so isolated, that is so humanized in an inverted way, of course, with its parameters and so forth. It's the one that's actually estranged to it. And that's the one that reacts.
Yeah.
When we have an emotional reaction, say like fear and a reaction of, something's happening to me, or the shutting down, that's the ego using the emotions to block it off, because it's saying, oh, we're going out of my parameter of range, and I don't have the permission to allow you to go there.
Yeah.
But the rest of you is not it's not concerned about it. It's actually quite open to it, and it's been in preparation for a long time.
So let me ask you this: do you want to go another 30 minutes, or you want to take a break?
Yeah, if I can take a 1-minute break, it'll be great. But yes.
Okay. So let me just ask you this real quick. We'll just use January 1, 2023 as a marker. We don't know when anything will happen. I just want to make that clear. But in between now and whatever that linear date is, where literally there's a flip. I'm not like a big event, but my question is that the point when the ego program is totally neutralized, or is it still going to be part of the journey as we go forward from, past a point like that?
Yeah, the intent is, from a collective perspective, that the ego is no longer going to be the dominant factor in our life, because you have to understand, the ego only really has been really designed and written and programmed to do one thing, and that is to operate in the inverted world. Mm-hmm. This is why the ego does everything possible to resurface, keep alive the inverted world, the inverted 3D, the inverted 2D. The agreement we made collectively is that we're going to close off the inverted 2D, inverted 3D, inverted matrix, not even the matrix, but the matrix operating in the old, even though the matrix is no longer there, but that old inverted world. We basically have made the agreement, and we're also working with our brothers and sisters souls, that by the end of 2022, that we're going to wrap up, and we're no longer even allowing ourselves to go into that world. Now, it will take a lot of effort for us to get a taste of it, but that would be more of a dream state and temporary, because the energies would not support it. During this period of time, till then, you're going to have souls that are going to leave. You're going to have some new souls that may come in that are already tuned to take part of it. There's going to be extras and whatever else that are not longer choosing to be here anymore. There are a couple of different approaches that I have not gotten the permission to share, really. But at the same time, there are possibilities that we will, in one way or another, create such a separation in channels that the organic 3D and the organic 5D will not see each other anymore. Even though they're on the same planet, they're on the channel, the vibrational channels will be so different that you're not going to see each other. And in fact, you're even going to forget that they're there.
Let's start with that. Let's take a break.
Okay.
Let's take a break. I'm going to turn on a quick video from one of our beloved sisters. We'll be right back, because I got to go to the little boy's room and get another ginger beer. Bundaberg from Australia. Okay. Be right back.
Okay.
get back on it. Franco DeNicola. Thank you, Candace Coe. That's pretty cool. Y'all saw that? See if I can start doing some of these remixes again. And have a open mic. Robert Evans, Sasha Grace, everybody else. So I have some questions now based on what he just said. Oh, Candace is here. Cool. Thank you for sharing. I know it definitely seems like there's an acceleration in with the body. Like the body is, I thought that was interesting what he said about that the body as a consciousness is familiar with, you know, those things outside of the experience of this earth, which makes sense. Makes sense. It's harder to come to terms for me to bring the body itself in as a separate consciousness, or a subconsciousness at least, or a part of a consciousness that makes up the human itself. It's getting real, no doubt about that. So we got a big day tomorrow, by the way. Let me just got tomorrow. We have Kristen Vambeset from Norway, Lavelle Zimmerman from Germany, and Amanda Smith from Sedona, who was at the Soulology Fest. So be a pretty cool day. Oh, there you are. You're back?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. He seems to be talking about the bifurcation of timelines with the organic 3D and 5D split. This is what Todd Davini is talking about also. Yeah, I had Todd on a couple years, 3 years ago, a couple of times. To me, it goes a little deeper because I like Franco's intel, because one thing I've noticed about it in the couple of years we've been doing shows, it's fluid, it's pliable, it's not set in stone. It has confirmed what I feel is several accelerations of the timeline that we've all kind of like jumped together, you know. So it's, to me, it's a good thing. But anyway, going back to what you were saying, it's twofold for me. One is, I guess what you were saying, so it would be, one would be either a correction or just a confirmation. It's just like right now we're walking the earth. There is Atlantis is over there, Lemuria is there, such and such is there. They're on different frequencies, and sometimes we have experiences where there's a physicality. So I think what you were saying, if I understand it correctly, is that there's a possibility we haven't chosen yet, that there might be what she's calling a bipurification, where basically if you get into the explanation, say from a spirit science perspective, that it's just basically following the same principles of those consciousnesses that are here at different frequencies on the earth. Was that right?
Yes, yes. So the agreement is, do we put enough of a separation between the two different channels or frequencies so that they don't overlap each other anymore? Because right now we're having an overlapping of organic 5D, organic 3D, inverted 3D, inverted 2D, and you know, and then we have the organic matrix that's actually simulating a little bit of the inverted matrix, while people are asking for that to support it to some degree. But you know, it was more like we can make a lot more progress if we have the opportunity, because there's a couple other things that have been thrown around. The opportunity to be fully in 5D and not to be interacting with the organic 3D or anything of that nature. And of course, the other stuff, we already made the agreement that we're going to take that out of the equation altogether, which is all the inverted stuff. And this is why we're going through a lot of the purging within ourselves, because you have to understand, our programs, our stories, our belief, our labels, our definitions, and so forth were all created and all supported and all has quite a history when the inverted world was full and active. Because if you look at all of us, if we look at our stories, we look at our programs, we look at anything that we've adopted from the moment you were born till now, most of all of it, if not all, is all that inverted world. You know, right, wrong, good, bad, acceptable, not acceptable, you need this, you need that, whatever it is. It was all in that polarity inverted world. So if we still have these programs that actually override and activate our state or does anything of that nature, then it's just going to continue to try to build that inverted world that is no longer there. So
Yeah.
this is why we're going through these energetic purges at this point in time. So the thing that they've been tossing around, and they meaning our brothers, sisters, souls, and us,
Yeah, of course.
at a certain level, of course, depending, some of us more active than others from a superconscious level, saying, okay, do we need to push it this far? Well, it's becoming more entertaining, more, I shouldn't say entertaining, more possible and more of preference to say, we probably can make more progress if the organic 3D gets immersed in the organic 3D without being distracted into the 5D, and the 5D gets deep into that. And then, of course, there's that merging that happens by 2035. Where
So there's So you're saying that the way it's moving, it's, although it could change, that it's looking more like it could be something like that, which sounds like it would be, I guess, a wipe of consciousness would be another way to put it. If you're in one of the realms versus the other, one of the frequencies or the other.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about memory of something is usually locked in based on a certain frequency. Okay. So as you get out of that frequency, you're going to also, this is why people are forgetting how to do things that really was important at one point, or at least thought, or they put a lot of power to it. They can't even go there anymore. They don't even remember. They can't even think of how they could have even done it before. How could I have lived that life? How could I, even did that? It doesn't even seem possible anymore because your range of frequencies going on and the memories are locked in with those frequencies. So if you actually take that leap, then you're going to forget you had a particular child at that age.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you an example, or that you had family at that because they chose to play in the older state. So you're not going to remember.
Yeah.
Is it a mind wipe? It could seem that way, but it's not. It's basically it's not in that range.
It's just again, ego trying to understand, but it does. One thing can be said regardless is the grid of the 5D organic is being whatever constructed, resurrected, lit, whatever you want to call it, so that the experience of a 5D, even if it's say in the radius of this room or this town or my existence, however big that is available to us. Which means that everything that's, I guess, a true there, even given the physical supernaturalness that it might represent, is available to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's being formatted.
Yeah, and the thing is too, you're not gonna yes, because of the formatting and so forth, you're not gonna lose that higher range because that's just becoming more crystal clear for you, and it's becoming more real for you. And the other stuff starts away. I think somebody had posted that you can't even remember the past. And absolutely, most of us can't remember our past because that past, unless you tune down to that frequency, you see it almost didn't exist. I mean, how many of us are looking at our lives and looking at it? It seems like the statement you said at the beginning, what seemed to be surreal is becoming real, and what was real is becoming surreal, or vice versa, or something like that.
Yeah, you go to, I got back here, I went to Walmart, and it was, even when you said about, stepping out for a second, letting one of my brothers step in, it was that kind of experience. I was looking around going, wow, this is really beautiful. It's also funny. It was surreal, but it's what I've considered real, and then this type of conversation, I had a show and I came on and she couldn't hear me and she went off and she came back on and then she could hear me but I couldn't hear her. I mean, all these anomalies are becoming like, oh, that's just the frequency. Yeah.
Yeah, the other example, just for people to know, is that the experience you mentioned is something that a lot of people have been reporting that they've noticed, is that, they go to Walmart or some other big store or anything of that nature, and there's a time they walk in and they're looking at it, and they're looking at it and they go, what a weird way to set things up. Why do we have all of this stuff here and whatever else? Because you're now looking at it through the eyes of a being
Yeah.
that has never seen it that way before.
Yeah.
And you can't even make sense of it.
I was watching a movie last night. I was distracting myself. I think that's what it was. Uh, and it wasn't a great movie. William Dafoe was in it, and it took place in Louisiana. So there was an emphasis on all the characters with the language, like Nolans,
Yeah.
and the culture. So they would like have a screenshot, and it would be the detective, sitting at his coffee table with 2 whiskey bottles, smoking a cigarette, and it would just flash it to implant that. And then it would show the detective walking in the front yard to the car with his 2 girls and his wife. And it was this Americana, picturesque thing. And it was so funny watching. I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, this is so weak. And yet, you know what I mean? It's just kind of a personification of what you said about some of our soul brothers and sisters that look at how deep we went, and that was kind of shocking to them. It just shows you how deep we went.
Yeah, and you brought up something very, very important too, because in a sense, some people, when they're going through these experiences, and I'm sure a lot of the people that are online at the moment or even watching it later, unless you have a reminiscence of an old movie because you have what do you call it, an idea of what it represents. If you actually look at some of the older movies and stuff like that, it looks like foreign beyond foreign. It's like,
I can't watch old movies.
yeah,
I can't even watch movies like that were in the 90s. Like you said, unless it's like Goodfellas or something But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And then like when you watch, I can't really, like find stuff. Like if you just go, what's new in 2021? Everything is like fantastical, end times. Just, I saw this one the other night, and this guy was having premonitions of like this storm of all storms, tornadoes. And, this whole thing happens. He builds a bomb shelter, gets his family in there. A storm comes. Everybody's okay. They put him in a psych ward and say, go to the beach and take a break with your family before we institutionalize you. They go to the beach, and the kid looks up, and there's this giant storm, and he was right. And that's how the movie ended. And right up to the end, I thought, this is a stupid movie, And then when he was right, and his wife was standing in the house, came out to the patio, was looking at him, they locked eyes, nothing was said. And she just shook her head. Yeah, you were right all along. And I thought, oh shit, there it is. Yeah. Like which brings me to another thing that I'm curious about with you. I think we might have talked about it a little bit privately. When you have, and I know your makeup is, let's just say singular. We'll just say whatever comprises you as it does for us. Yours, you have more specificity with yours. But when you're having these conversations, are you an equal voice, like the whole you, the soul you? And I know that's a little bit different than most of us, but are you an equal voice? Is there a conversation with what we might call infinite intelligence? You talked about having conversations with Yeshua and, the frequencies, 1,000 frequencies, 500. Is there an equal voice there? And if so, was there a transcendence to it? And, a journey to it, an evolution to it? Was it something that was always there? Anything you can add to it?
I'm not sure if I'm understanding. What do you mean by an equal voice?
Let's say that I lay down tonight and I talk to the universe, and I chuckle and say, "Oh, well, this is funny because I'm really talking to myself." Or it could be dragon aspects. It could be a lot of different things. Whatever aspects of me that come out. Yeah. Let's say Anubis. I find myself having these conversations and questioning not whatever I'm told, but anything that I feel like I need to question. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Is that my ego, or do I just need to? Yeah.
No, I mean, your overall consciousness, which is the complete makeup of you, is the part of you that would ask a question,
Mm.
just for a further clarification. So then you will be talking to your, say, multi-dimensional aspect of yourself or things of that nature. Um, the ego is the only one that goes, why this, why that? Does it have to be this way?
Yeah. Well,
Whatever it is.
I think it's both. I think I can say it's both.
Yeah,
There
and it
is.
will. It
Yeah.
likes to be
Yeah.
part of it.
You're
Absolutely.
right. You're right. And I think I get it now, because it's like you said it first. That oversoul part is the part that asks the questions, because it's almost like Anubis pops in. I'm like, what are you doing here? But that's my oversoul. Like, what is it? What is it that needs to be shown? But then the ego's like, I don't want to do that. Why do I need to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing we want to keep in mind, nothing overshadows each other. So, for example, when we're talking the innate consciousness of the body is not less than and
Yeah.
overshadows
Yeah.
any the human entity or the multidimensional soul, because the only reason all three of them are together is because they're all somehow facilitating each other and also working together. So
Yeah.
that comes in. So that part of it makes up the part that says, oh, let me question the questioning. The overall conscious may ask the question, and any part of you can tap into that. And sometimes it has to go a little further down the
Mm.
chain, or up the chain, or what we call the up the channel, to the, say, the oversoul, or to other souls, or other levels of consciousness, or sourceness itself, or another level of sourceness, because sourceness has created tiers of levels of access so that you don't go right to the top, because it actually, if you go right to the core, pure high vibration source, it actually dissolves your even the capacity to have a human experience anymore, because you're now going to a range that it doesn't. So it will have those levels. It's not to block you, it's to aid you. So
Hmm.
because levels of source, depending on what dimension you're playing on, what form you have, is going to be best suited without eliminating the game. For example, if
Yeah.
you're going to go to the game and say, well, I want to go right to the core operating system, and then the game won't exist anymore because the game
Yeah.
can't function within that.
Yeah.
But the game has its own construct. So this is what the range that you're putting into that. So with me, it's like, since you related the question to myself, every part of me was asking a lot of questions. Like my body was asking questions at the time. I my consciousness, my overall consciousness, wanted to learn. So in essence, it would tap into what my multidimensional soul was providing, and then of course my guides. I mean, if you actually had to ask my so-called guide Yeshua, because many of us have it, say, hey, how was Franco in communicating with you at the, every time you've communicated? He would relate to you. It's like one of these students that wants to know every little freaking detail,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm
type
with you on that.
because and a lot of it, a lot of the questions I had wasn't so much the bigger perspective, which was a perspective. It wanted to know, hey, how did you handle the human experience? How did you handle this and that and whatever? And I know a lot of times he would say, hey, we're in different ranges here because the world is very different, you know, than when I was around. And I remember he gave me a little trip. This goes back quite a few decades ago. A little trip back to his time, when he was in a full incarnation, because that was the only time he came into a full incarnation. Um, I think it was the only time he came into a full incarnation. But the other 32 times that he actually came back on the planet, it was as drop-ins for shorter periods of time. So he's been here 33 times.
Hmm.
Okay.
32 after the
Yes.
first one. Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. I
Yes.
got a download one time that, and of course it could just be metaphoric, and it's just trivial. It just had to do with like this something that was originated as a mission type thing from Sirius. That part of our narrative, I guess he was like the point person to that effect, something like that. Oh, I had a good question. What were we just talking about? Oh,
Well, we're talking about Yeshua and stuff like
the
that.
body. Okay, so the biggest thing I've gotten so far today at a higher state of awareness, a more expansive state of awareness, is that the body is a consciousness of a team of consciousnesses that make up what we might call the human aspect or the human soul. That the body is just as sentient. I mean, it's like colossal because it's actually more sentient because it's physical, but it has everything else as well. Plus, it has itself. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, and I have been saying this for a few months, and a lot of people have the body speaking louder, but like it's taken on a whole new thing here in the last couple of weeks. Like even from when I said goodbye to you and Kimberly, like things changed on that day, and they keep changing. And one of the things that I've really noticed over the last 10 days, being alone, being in my own space, is the energy, and I'm going to use this word and wince, of addiction, because I don't think it's the right word. Morgan might call it distraction. I think that's a better word. And what I've noticed is it's not just in something I'm going to smoke. It's something I'm going to eat, or why I'm going to eat, what's happening is there's some kind of intel coming in that's going, you know what you're fixing to do? You know why you're doing it? Think about this. And it's like, even like I'm juicing, and it tells me, don't juice today. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to eat? Who said you're going to eat anything? Like, I go to sleep. Every night. It's like, I try to stay up and talk to Morgan, twice a day. If I got to do that, it's going to have to be like at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'm trying to go to bed at 3. Let's just say I can't sleep. I finally fall asleep at 5 because it's, and this morning I wake up an hour and a half later, 6:30 in the morning. And I remember seeing the clock, and I thought, man, I might just call her. I mean, this obviously isn't working. I thought I'll try one more time. I go to sleep. I wake up an hour and a half later. I thought it was 11:30 in the afternoon. So all this weird stuff's happening, and the end product of all that. What I was saying is, I have a new understanding in this conversation. This body is, it's not just the human aspect has an equal seat at the round table of my oversoul. The human body itself has a substantial representation there, and I almost want to say it's front and center now.
Yeah, and when we look at the body itself, the body is, yes, you're right. It's a sentient. It's a sentient, just as a sentient as Gaia, the planet, because it's intimately connected with that. Which Gaia is the extension of the whole solar system, and is an extension of the galaxy, and is an extension of the universe. So all of it is interconnected, and all of it is communicating, and all of it is in different layers and levels of form. Then our human body were installed with DNA, because our full DNA is 144 strands, but we have 12 DNA strands that are very direct makeup and transmitter receivers to various species that were contributors. So, and then their connections and their spectrums, and that's just the body alone. So you can imagine how much consciousness the body alone has. We can't turn around and say, well, oh, it's only our multidimensional soul. No, our body has a tremendous amount of consciousness, and it's becoming more online. And the reason it's changing to crystalline is so that it could use more of those frequencies and use more of that consciousness in its state of representation or expression and so forth.
Yeah, and when you look at all the different stages of awareness involving the different bodies, so to speak, and the expansion that always comes, the transformation that always comes. Well, most of that's been in our non-physical consciousness, like being in flow and miracles happening. And but as I was going through this body thing, which I think it started that last day and then it kept going over here, I was hearing, well, why do you think the body's any different? Like you want to grow your hair back on your head and your hair go black and you grow younger. Well, there's a process you got to go through to do that, which totally made sense to me. It totally made sense to me. I had this question pop in my head. I asked 2 people on the show, and I know it's coming from like a higher self thing. It's not an ego thing. And it's not in the answer that the person gives on a literal basis. What I got was there's some type of energetic answer to it. I don't know if I explained that right. But the question is, if spaceships physically land on the Earth, do you think they will be real or fake? I don't know why that's popping up. I asked 2 people and they said fake. And I've never had that type of discussion with either one of them. And I'm not trying to paint any picture, and don't answer the question unless you want to, but to me, it's like, being left to ourselves is being left to ourselves, right down to the, to personal experience. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the thing is, ships don't have to land, in a sense. First of all. Second of all, the only reason that we would see it is because we're wanting that. But at the same time, from everything I've seen, they don't actually land. I've never seen them land even in their own planets. They basically are, within that field, and the beings can be easily projected down, and they will, right?
No.
I've seen them, how they do things, right? And what the movies have portrayed, they land this ship, this thing comes out, they come coming out. They don't do that. They don't. So it would be a project to kind of convince people that are expecting that, because a lot of people would expect that. It's like a ship. And the other thing is, the ship is metallic or the ship is mechanical or something of that nature. Every ship that I've been on are sentient beings.
Yeah.
They actually are alive.
Yeah.
They have no solidity, but they have a certain level of solidity. They have no controls. They have no screens and buttons and stuff like that you have to push, or you sit like Star Trek or anything of that nature. It doesn't have any of that. It actually communicates with you from a what we call telepathic way. And if you want to navigate the ship will download the capacities to communicate with it. It's like it installs the software so that you can communicate with it, with the ship. And I've had the experience. So on numerous occasions, and it's very real. So like real to me, it feels very real in the sense like it's not like, oh, it's just a figment of my imagination. It's like, it's no different than what I see around me. It's like, yeah, it's there. It's so vivid. It's so how it responds. The thing is, it's not the ships that are landing. It's the beings that are here, but they're already here. There's many of them, but they keep themselves at a frequency range where they are not seeing them. But who's seeing them? The ones that are ready to see them.
Yeah.
And the ones that actually will hover somewhere, usually they'll seem like a light or whatever it is. Sometimes they will take form because people want to see a form. They'll shape like a lengthwise. But some of the ones I've seen, they're very elaborate. They extend in all different directions. They don't have a round shape or just a long cylinder shape or anything of that nature. They have multiple different shapes and branches that branch off, right? But
well, I guess the reason that I didn't pose the question. I was just a channel for it, but
Mhm.
I can see now why the seed's planted or whatever you want to call it, because there's programming there's a program that's what am I trying to say? Could be presented as attached to any aspect of our thing. Anything potential could be a program. And I
Mhm.
guess where I'm seeing this question go and the answer and what it's bringing in is the narrative's the narratives, the story's the story. Like there's no way in hell we can explain the multiplicity of it all because it goes in all directions at all times. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And yeah, I'm fascinated by how the human aspect is doing this. That's fascinating to me because at some level, it's doing the alignment. It's making the choices. It's like to me just kind of like stepped into a new playground, and all the memory of the old playgrounds are like one little centimeter, one square centimeter, and it's a multiverse wide thing. I mean, this is really kind of thought provoking to me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and the thing is, what we've been talking about is really just triggering people's memories because we all
Mhm.
have it within ourselves. You know,
Yeah. Did,
our body stores as a part of that. Our human entity have had many interactions with that, and in our multidimensional soul is very familiar with it. It's just that we've created this heavily programmed conditioning because I don't know if you've probably heard little young kids and so forth. To them it's like nothing. It's like you're talking about going for an ice cream. They're talking, oh yeah, they come and visit. They're little,
yeah, I know that Mary
they have
Rodwell's work is amazing.
memories and they have all knowing of how it is, and they remember even the interactions and the communication and so forth because it's that natural. It's that
Yeah,
easy. I
yeah.
mean,
Um, okay, so if you like again nuts and bolts, layman level, human level. So these are my words.
Mhm.
Um, if you, and this again is metaphoric, because don't get caught up in it. If you were to have a council that ran your life, let's just say that whatever I am sat with, and that council was represented by physical body, such and such, ego, whatever that makeup is. How would you describe? Because I mean, I'm actually talking to myself,
Mhm.
and I guess the reason I asked the question is so maybe it's a situation where I want to sit with each one of them, right, to get to know them. Like maybe I'm missing something. How would you describe that council? Like what names would? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about if you would call it names, but I'm very familiar with what you're saying because, in essence, if you choose to see it in that fashion, that brings it to its true state. So, in fact, if you want to sit down and have a conversation with your body, okay, so your overall consciousness is going to say, okay, let's sit down and let's have a conversation here. You can have a conversation with your ego. You can have your conversation with your multidimensional soul. You can have your conversation with your multidimensional human entity, or what we call our human entity, and you can have a conversation with your because it is already a council. It's already all of it is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
matter of saying, hey, I'd like to have a conversation. And the conversation is not going in and why this, why that, I want to know this and that. That's the ego's
It's more
input.
like who are you? It's the same conversation that wakes us up. Like, what am I? What is God? And but I can see it like, oh, you're here. I didn't know you were here. I'm sorry, but who are you? What are you? Kind of thing. That's the way I would see it.
If you went, when you went on a date with Morgan or when you were talking with Morgan, what was
Mm-hmm.
your interest? You wanted to get to know Morgan, right? You wanted
Yeah.
to kind of get her feel of what she had to share, how she saw the world, what she saw in anything that's going
Mm-hmm.
on. And you're doing the same. So it's the same thing. So you go in with that curiosity with your body and say, hey, listen, I want to get to know you a little better. You know, I know you have wisdom. I know you have a certain perspective. I know that you're going through whatever, you know, in your interactions with Gaia, interactions with the playground, interactions with other forms and so forth. I like to, you know, understand it. Let's get to know each other, right? And
Yeah.
you can now sit down with that, and you can do the same thing with your human entity. You know, at some point you say, okay, listen, I'd like to get to a deeper understanding of how you see things, how you feel things. You can tell me a little bit about your history, because you've been around for 15,000 years and you have
Yeah.
a vast record of experiences and so forth that I would like to tap into. It maybe you've picked up some really beautiful seeds that we can really use now.
I'm sitting here and I'm just almost dumbfounded, because she's actually talked about this when she refers to the higher self, because a lot of people will come to her and say, can you connect me to my higher self? And just shows them how to do it themselves. But I've heard her tell people, you know, it's just like you're saying. It's just like you meet a friend, you want to get to know them. If you keep going back, knocking on their door and playing with them, you're going to get to know it better. It's going to expand. So that makes total sense. I just hadn't, and I have done that with future self, you know, inner child, you know, child, many different aspects, but I've never actually had that conversation from the oversoul voice and have the human aspect, or even the parts of the human aspect, to include the body, and actually sat there and had a extended conversation. I've had conversations, but I've not actually done the same thing I've done, let's say, with my future self, where I've sat in uni with my future self and asked questions and got to know my future self, and you know, that type of thing. So that's
Yeah,
something.
and the future self, that's a good one too, because I like that. You can ask any part of your innate and say, okay, you know, if we have to move forward, us moving forward, how do you see yourself 5 years from now? Like, what would be your idea, and are you striving for to achieve as an experience, as an interaction, as an embodiment of itself? So you can ask that question with your body, then later on you can ask it with your human entity, and you can ask it also as a multidimensional soul at that point in time, as your multidimensional part. So you can do that on different levels, and get, I think, because look at it this way: if you're going to go see a counselor, maybe not a counselor is the right word, but a facilitator, you're going to go there, and you're going to go there for you. You say, okay, what's going on with me? Can you help me? Can you tell me what's going on here? Why am I feeling this way? And so forth. It's a very different relationship than if you sat down with an individual, like I was saying earlier, with like Morgan or anybody at this point, and say, hey, listen, I'd like to understand a little bit more about you, your viewpoints, how you see the world, what are your aspirations and so forth, what you see it. That's a two-way communication, because now you're learning, and you're not going in for you, you're going in for all parts of you. So you're having a dialogue, you're sharing.
You don't have to be right.
That's
In
the other
fact,
part. Yeah.
you can't. I don't want to run out of time, because we have somebody asked if they can ask a question. So please do, Winnie Lou. And we have a friend of ours by the name of TL Guadalupe from Tucson, Arizona, sent me a couple of questions. This one here: can you elaborate on how the higher frequency organic matrix is being built and activated? Perhaps is it by the code, aka HTML, of numerous incarnated beings and light carriers who are simultaneously collapsing the old programming? I read this, thank you, TL, and I don't know, my mind goes to, it sounds like what we're doing. But I guess at some level it's mirrored. I mean, it's being done on both sides, so to speak. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, the codes that we're receiving, the support that we're receiving is just the building material. It's basically giving us a higher range of capacities. We are building it moment by moment as we go along. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to code you to be able to do and express and feel and do whatever a specific way. This is the beauty of it. There's nothing specific, nothing locked up along the way. It's like, we're going to give you more accessibility. This is why when we're tapping into consciousness, that it's up to us what we do with our consciousness in our own uniqueness. Right. And then everybody's tapping into different levels of consciousness, and they're bringing their uniqueness, and then we're actually designing it. When you ask and say, well, what's the world going to look like? You can only look at a probability of where everybody's going towards that direction with their intention and so forth. But we're not, our capacities are expanding each step of the way. And until we get there, we don't know how far we can push it even further. I mean, we have capacities, but where's our focus? Are we going to be interested to do it one way or another? This is the beauty of it, because we may say, okay, I want to go this direction. But along the way, you're going to notice, that I think we can do something more. We can go this way or that way, right? Or this is not as appealing. Let's go this other way.
It's like the direction that you get, regardless of how you got there, has like these concrete, almost like I don't want to say concrete, but a more concrete vision in front of you, a visualization, context, expectations. You know what I mean? And this other way that you're talking about, it's like all this information came in, whether it be an equinox, solstice, or anything, and you get downloaded, this huge download, and then you go out and create again. And this creative atmosphere seems to be one of, I don't know what's going to happen. I know what I'd like to happen. I'm going to put my heart into it, but I don't even know how this is going to go. Right? It's weird.
Let me give you an example that would probably bring some relatability and creativity. It's like this. If you go to school to learn how to be an architect, or you go to school to learn how to be an artist or a painter or whatever, you go there to learn the skill sets. What you do with the skill sets, how much imagination you plug in, and what the circumstances around you that will bring forth a certain creation it's what you do. So this is what the codes are. It's just teaching you how to use more of your skill sets. But what do you do with the skill sets, and what we collectively do with our skill sets, and how we shape our world is to be used as we go along.
Yeah, that's right. It always comes back to, it's the opposite of a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Because a bird in the hand is what we know. The bush is what we don't know. And one way or the other, we're nudged that direction. Of course, now it's more of a, I'm not going to say it's a sprint, but it's definitely accelerating. We had the other question here. I'm a little bit hesitant to get into it, not because I'm afraid of any censorship. I don't really care. We're on 10 platforms, and you can always find us at souljanetwork.com to watch any of these shows. We don't have an archive there, but our friend Lucy asked a question / statement. If a child gets a vaccine, will their frequency supersede it? And I would just expand the question. It seems like, at least for some of us, it's becoming a pure energy game, regardless of what the physical presents, because it's not just the physical that we're taking in. It's everything, the multidimensional, the non-physical. That my question would be that, wouldn't that not hold for potentially for anybody? I mean, such as an example, of course, like with GMOs, fluoride, chemtrails, metals, we've obviously overcome these physical representations of an energetic intention to bring us down. Would the same hold for vaxxers?
Yes, pretty well every single one. that's been made available up to this point in time. There's a little difference in the ones that are being released right now for this, so-called pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. But in essence, we all have the opportunity, and a lot of the kids basically will carry such a high vibration that it won't stick as much anyways. But they will be able to utilize it if they choose to kind of create a shift or an environment to shift people around them, being parents or whatever it is. But most of them will be turning them off, and most of them have already turned it off, and most of them have never even activated it. Even though it's in there, they're just codes, instructions, but they never activated it.
What do you mean never activated what?
Like all of us are exposed to all of these different chemical soups, right?
Right.
And what are these chemical soups? They're just instructions. They're codes. It's like a virus or whatever it is. Unless you launch the virus because you choose to launch the virus because it's going to benefit you or the group that you're with, meaning it could be harmony dynamics or agreements that you made, you won't turn it on. If it's going to benefit, you turn it on. You use it and you can turn it back off, right? The idea was, okay, if we indoctrinate everything, so many viruses and so many of these things at this point in time, that we will impede progress, consciousness, you name it, accessibility, and so forth, which has a certain level of truth, but not permanently, and not to the full extent, because look at it, it's still progressing forward. So most of these energies that are coming in and most of these codes that are coming in are new sets of instructions as a reminder and a reactivator say, we're not turning it off for you, but there's two parts to it. One is reminding you that you can turn it on and off, just in case you forgot, because of all the other stuff. You can turn it on and off. The second part is we're also giving you the access codes, how to turn it off or even to negate it, to neutralize it. But you have the free will to do whatever you want to do with it. That's
so it's a construct and consent from the collective group, as you've talked about, and then right down to the individual in the moment, I guess.
Right. Right.
So as this awareness expands energetically and more becomes available to us, it would be to me, it would be inevitable that accessibility would just be more prominent every day. And whether it speeds it up or not, is it what are the possibilities, the potential? Is it necessary, etc., to consciously connect with incarnated souls, let's say, so to speak, just as we have with non-physical souls or brothers and sisters? Is there any benefit to that? Is there something to that? Are we each representing a piece of the living Akashic that, if we're moved to seek that part of infinite intelligence, that in this time, would this be something that would benefit us? Is it something that is just happening organically? Is it something that we'd be wasting our time? You know what I mean?
You mean connecting with each other and
yeah, I just mean a lot of people are talking about you were in my dream, and so and so was in my dream, and a lot of that type of threading, or has become more aware. It's one of the byproducts of the, let's just say, the last year and a half, where there's a more and more concurrence that hey, that's happening to me too. I'm experiencing that too. Is there a point when these, what we deemed at one time, these unconscious or dream state connections will become part of our reality just as much as this?
Yes. So the way that works is that as we go along, those interchangeability or communication or exchange of sorts are going to happen so seamlessly that you don't have to actually have somebody pop in and say, okay, well, Franco showed up in my dreams and told me this, or Todd showed up in my dreams. And
well, it's kind of like you came back and I told you what was happening with me, and you two talked about it in the car the whole way.
Mhm.
I've experienced it with Morgan and other people, a lot of it in Sedona. But so there's a telepathic. I guess I'm just, again, I don't know if it's the ego, or just my unquenchable thirst to bring in the information. Not because I want to speed anything up, but because it's pretty cool. But that's just like the physical. Well, I say physical because physical today or tomorrow is going to be something totally different than physical today. I think you kind of touched on that, or something that would be, part of the senses, the conscious senses. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I mean, I think it's. I just wonder how that's going to look. Like at some point we're just going to not even talk. I know that's coming, but what
Yeah,
happens in between?
the thing is, our different experiences, our different viewpoints, and different observations, and different access of consciousness will be, easily tapped into each other and say, okay, I'd like to understand their viewpoint because I haven't gone there, and I don't want to actually do it the hard way. Let's connect with that. The reason that we're actually seeing each other in what represents as a person of sorts. For example, like you see Morgan show up in your dreams, or whoever, or I show up, or anybody at this point in time, is because we still have a belief system, and that usually changes as we go along. That if I hear it from such and such, then I'm going to pay attention to it, and I'm also going to notice, well, he took the effort to show up. I better listen, right? Type of thing. Eventually, that is not a requirement along the way because it's just like, oh, I just want to tap into that, and you bring it in, but you still use it how you want to use it. It's not like one oversees the other. It's like, I want to see through another pair of eyes just to get a different understanding. And maybe I'm not seeing it all because I haven't had that particular experience, but I want to see it through there. That's all. But it
Yeah.
becomes seamless in a sense where you don't actually have to have somebody up here. You can just tap into it. It's automatic.
Yeah.
FSL.
No, I got you. Yeah. The again, back to the body.
Mhm.
It would make sense if it follows the pattern of everything else that because of the depths, and the multisensory aspect of the body's conversion, leading to reformation, leading to transformation, it would seem like the outcome of the transformation of specific to the body and all it offers to the other bodies
Mhm.
in our makeup is going to be pretty incredible. And it feels like pretty quick. I mean, we're talking, and I know we've talked about this, but there's a different level of awareness now. If you look at the evolution of the physical transformation and compare that to the mental and the emotional and all the other things and all the other work that we've done, this is going to be like huge. Like mind-blowing huge. Like this is bigger than secret space programs and breakaway civilizations and anything else you can come up with is to understand that on a wider scale than may have occurred, like you pointed out, with a Jesus or a Buddha or so on, is going to be on a much wider scale. It's going to be impossible not to notice, I would think,
Mhm.
some of these things that would happen that I would have to say we'd have to be seeing some of that in the next year and a half from people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, as we're going along, what we're doing is now we're sharing our physical experiences and our various other experiences, where you can download or take in, somebody living in some other part of the world and bring their whole experience into you, so you can use bits and pieces of it, and the bodies will communicate so freely and are so adaptable so that you can have multiple different division experiences. Because the only reason that we have had, besides the programming, a shorter life is because the bodies were so locked up in isolation that it could only have one life stream of experience, and then it doesn't make much progress.
Mm.
When we were originally designed to go up to 2,000 years easily, you say, well, I'm in the same body and I'm going to have the same experience for the next 2,000 years. I mean, yeah, that's not going to be appealing. However, when you're exchanging experiences from everybody around the world, everywhere, and then you can bring extraterrestrial bodies into a in component. You can have a very open platform, physical experience of that nature. And then you start using more of the channels of your multidimensionality too, and you start plugging into that. So now you don't have an isolated body where it only has one channel of experience. It goes from childhood to adolescence to teenage to whatever, into adulthood and aging and death, type of thing, through one little channel, because it's not restricted anymore. So it becomes it's like you saying, hey, yeah, I'd like to embody fully Morgan's history of experience in being in a female body. Okay, it becomes all available for you to. It doesn't mean that you're going to transform into Morgan, but you already have all the experiential component of that, and you can bring in others and so forth. And it just, what it does is expand your capacity of experiencing itself. So it's not.
Well, I mean, at some point, I mean, that to me would be inevitable too. It's like we're melding, all of us. And, yeah, if I was going to do anything with Morgan, it'd be to materialize in nothing.
You can have all of that.
I know. We've already did. It's already kind of, and this is what I guess I'm really overall coming to. So, you could look at the body, for instance, or you could look at the ability to physically teleport and touch someone else. You see little snippets and signs of things happening. But if I look at the body and how loud the body is becoming, with patience, nurturing the whole 9 yards, no judgment, which is my own choice, but the body's really getting loud. And part of it's basically saying to me, and I feel like it's saying it to us, is that, hey, I may be the body, I may be the most dense part of all of your makeup, but the same rules apply.
Exactly.
The element of instant transformation and change is just as abundant and possible here as it is in the etherics, right? So that in itself, to me, is such a huge expansive code. It's a perfect example in the most literal, dense sense of why we got to take it one step at a time. Because it's not in the ability of what you can do. It's the space of acceptance from what you thought you were and what you actually are becoming. That's a challenge. It's like, holy shit, I am God. Whoa, And
the body had to get was programmed to be densified, or was modified to be densified, because it was never densified, and it was never as restricted, and it didn't have all the operating systems that we are now purging. Because part of the purging is not our stories, programs, belief systems, and emotions and perceptions and so forth, but it's also the operating system of saying mortality, aging, of deterioration, of having limited mobility, flexibility, having limited capacities of connection and so forth. All of that stuff was all just densified to have a more restricted way of design. But it's not our actual blueprint. It's not our true design altogether. So part of that, a part of the purging we're doing, and this is why we're actually changing, because we were really high ratio crystalline and lower ratio of silicate and very low of carbonic, and then it got programmed to be very carbon-based, very heavy carbon-based, very little silicate and very little crystal. And the more carbonic you became, less flexibility, less information storage, less light storage, and then of course it became what looks like more densified, meaning it changes slowly. It has a pattern. The pattern is more locked up, but that's all changing. This is the thing,
and rapidly. I mean, so rapidly. Like, we talked about it a year ago and 2 years ago and 5 years ago, but this is like, this is moving so fast, and And that's because if you take that speed and the acceleration factor, because it seems to come in cycles, and like you said about the whatever's coming up, to what is it, the solstice, compared to the equinox, you said it's bigger. Well, what hasn't gotten bigger? But when you take that and ram that into the body, into the most physical part of us, and the same level of growth and evolution and rules of expansion apply, that's mind-blowing. That's like mind-blowing. I mean, it's literally, you could see somebody in 3 or 6 months that you saw back then, that's looks 10 years younger and healed, whatever words you want to use. I mean, this is what we're talking about. I feel like it is.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason, it's not like you say, well, the equinox versus the the solstice and all this other stuff that's coming through, one being better. Really, the difference is that we're more ready for the next wave, the next pulse, the next activation, the next whatever, because we're the ones that are becoming more ready. And that's why, as we move along, we're kind of inviting more of those pulses to come in a lot stronger, because we're ready to go to the next level. That's all there is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a big fun playground, and
absolutely,
man, I mean, it's
thank you for being in the playground with all of us. And all the people that are following this work and so forth, that I'm in great appreciation and awe for all of this, because for the longest time in my life, I have been here for a while, the longest part of my life, it felt very alone. And over the years, it's becoming more and more. But now it seems like way more playmates and way more, versions of ourselves that are up to the task and are brave, or doing all these amazing things and are getting excited about it and so forth. And that's it.
It's kind of like, it's, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's kind of like we had all these points of contention from where we're coming from, programs, whatever you want to call it. And we've kind of like cleared it. And there's now like maybe one or two main ones. It's more of a collective feel, like masculine to feminine, or you could say dark to light, or whatever integration points you want to talk about. But there's something to me that is much more present now than before, although let's just say the process or the equation hasn't changed, and that is the magical births, the magical creations that are occurring, that are kind of like starting to overshadow the things that serve as catalysts for it, that type of thing. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, great 2.5 hours. Franco,
it's our longest show that we've ever done.
Well, we'll see if we can break the record next Friday.
Oh, sure.
Or I'm sorry, 2 weeks from now. If you can go 2 weeks, that'd be good.
Let me part with one thing with people. Okay. From all this conversation, I mean, we've triggered a lot of things. We've ignited. I would suggest you listen to this a few times, because it's very powerful for everybody. But at the same time, if you got a lot of why is this happening to me, and all this fear and any emotions coming up and all of this, why is that not changing? Why is this? Whatever it is, just keep in mind, that's that ego that's trying to distract you. That's it. If it gives you intensification of discomfort and, doubt or anything like that, it's always the ego. So just observe that and say, oh, it's my little friend. I got you. I love you. I first appreciate the thank you. I love you, but I free you, and you may have to do it a million times, maybe. Yeah. I don't say that because you don't need it as many times now as you used to. But the more you do that,
it's warp speed. We're like sponges, And
doubt's the same thing. It's, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. It's only ego. Your higher self will never say that. And we're talking about higher self of body, higher self of your human entity, your higher self of your body. but also when we combine it all together, creating the highest aspect of yourself, which is all of it united as your overall consciousness.
It's the A team. It's the
Correct.
A team.
And you
I've
have
got
an
a
A
bit.
team in all of us. All of us have the A team.
I got a big lion in mine. He's been around for about a week. Yeah. Anyway, I told Morgan, look out for that lion. He's coming. I'm coming over.
Cool.
All right. All right, brother. See you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, love you, my friend.
You take care. Tell Kimberly hi, and thank you for everything and for holding space for me and all your contributions at Soulspeaks Fest. I'm going to be getting out material excerpts from from it, and Franco's in it a lot. So I look forward to sharing the bits and pieces with people. Y'all take care. Peace out. 3 shows tomorrow. See you then.
Okay.